Maybe 17 Celsius in the sunshine over eastern England. There will be a breeze, which means it won't feel quite as mild as that, but still those temperatures well above average. Look at this, though, spiralling in behind me, another area of low pressure, further bands of rain pushing northwards during Thursday night, lingering into Friday morning. Gusty winds too, especially over southern parts of England and Wales. Could get very lively for a time during Friday. So blustery conditions, heavy rain too, spreading across the south, staying fairly cloudy for Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain, but perhaps mostly dry and bright in Scotland, particularly in the west. Some good spells of sunshine here on Friday, whereas in the east, quite a lot of low cloud moving in, keeping temperatures suppressed and overall quite a bit cooler for most of us compared to tomorrow.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one.
Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like
Absolutely.
on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today. Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, 50,000 migrants, 400 hotels at a cost of well over £6 million a day. The Channel invasion is tearing our great British communities apart, but is the government finally starting to listen?
We must not elevate the well-being of illegal migrants above those of the British people. Accommodation for migrants should meet their essential living needs and nothing more.
Why I welcome today's plans to house illegal migrants on RAF bases and on barges. It's just the start, and I'm going to explain why Rishi must give Superwoman Suella free rein to truly take back control of our borders in my digest next. Then my superstar panel give their view. Tonight, I'm joined by Adam Brooks, Dominique Samuels and Matthew Laza. Also coming up, huge crowds welcomed King Charles to Germany today on his first state tour as monarch. But while his father makes Britain proud, Prince Harry continues to smear his own family, this time with baseless claims in a British court. So is the royal family's rift now too deep to solve before the coronation? Harry's biographer, Angela Levin, weighs in live. Elsewhere on the show, as The Guardian scores a woke own goal by apologising for its links to slavery while promising just £10 million in a decade-long programme of restorative justice, has the hard left's mouthpiece opened the floodgates for British reparations? Tory Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson returns to the show to deliver his unflinching verdict live in the studio. Also on the way, J.K. Rowling has hit out at the danger posed by extremist trans ideology in her most personal interview ever.
We've seen thousands of % increase in young women trying to escape their physical bodies. Should we not be asking why that's happening?
But is the Harry Potter author right to say children changing gender is one of the worst medical scandals in a century? That's our big debate later in the show. As this woman goes on US hit TV show Dr. Phil, claiming that she is Madeleine McCann.
A DNA sample to Scotland Yard, for example. Are you willing to do that?
If DNA will show that my roots come from Britain, I will do this.
So in light of this news development, should the Home Office still be giving £300,000 in new funding for the UK investigation? Two of Scotland Yard's most respected former detectives duke it out in the clash. Also tonight, was it wrong for the actor Guy Pearce to issue a pathetic, snivelling apology for simply suggesting non-trans actors should be able to take trans roles? Well, the comedian and host of the Trigonometry podcast, Constantine Kissin, speaks out live. And is Eddie Izzard right that right-wing comics are racist and sexist? One of Britain's best and proudly conservative entertainers, Jim Davidson, takes on the failed Labour MP in an unmissable uncancelled. Plus, tributes pouring in for the TV and radio legend Paul O'Grady after he passed away unexpectedly at the age of 67.
They moan, and I think if I was being paid 15 million, I'd bag a donkey, so shut up.
Irreplaceable and irrepressible. We'll celebrate the life of one of Britain's best-loved performers later in the show. As ever, I'll bring you tomorrow's newspapers hot off the press too. I have a feeling Mr. O'Grady will feature heavily on those front pages, and a new Greatest Britain and Union Jack has named before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. My digest on the government's major announcement about moving the illegal migrants out of the hotels, which are currently causing so many stresses and strains in local communities up and down Britain in just a moment. But first, the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening. The top story tonight, the Immigration Minister has announced plans to stop housing asylum seekers in hotels and instead place them in disused military bases. Admitting that the use of hotels had harmed some towns, Robert Jenrick said migrants will now be placed at sites in Essex, Lincolnshire and East Sussex. The accommodation will be guarded by 24-hour security and meet migrants' essential living needs.
These hotels take valuable assets from communities and place pressures on local public services. Seaside towns have lost tourist trade, weddings have been cancelled, and local councils have had their resources diverted to manage them. And the hard-working British taxpayer has been left to foot the eye-watering £2.3 billion a year bill.
Some of the leading names in the digital technology industry are calling for a 6-month pause in the development of artificial intelligence, or AI, because of the potential risks to society. They're warning that the tech could eventually outsmart and outnumber human minds, then replace us. Elon Musk is among more than 1,000 industry executives who've signed an open letter saying powerful AI systems should only be progressed once there's confidence the effects will be positive and manageable. Now, the Daily Mail says the Duke of Sussex's private claim against them should be rejected in its entirety and has been brought far too late. Associated Newspapers Limited says the legal challenges brought by Prince Andrew and other celebrities, including Sir Elton John, have no real prospects of succeeding. But the legal team for Prince Harry and others have described the publisher's bid as hopeless and plainly inappropriate. The Queen Consort is said to have been deeply saddened at the death of TV presenter and dog lover Paul O'Grady, who died last night suddenly at the age of 67. She says his warm heart and infectious humour lit up the lives of so many, and his partner, Andre Portasio, said he died unexpectedly but peacefully. Broadcaster Pete Price was a friend. He says he changed television. Now, the German president has hailed a new chapter in relations between his country and the UK as he welcomed the King and Queen Consort to a banquet in Berlin. And a warning, if you're watching on television, there are some flashing images coming up. King Charles and Camilla have been greeting guests arriving at the Bellevue Palace. President Steinmeier thanked Charles for choosing Germany as his first foreign visit as head of the royal family, describing it as a tremendous personal gesture. That's it from me. I'm back in an hour. Now back to Dan.
More than 400 hotels are at this moment housing well over 50,000, mostly illegal migrants, across this great country. It's costing us £6 million plus a day, a figure that is rapidly growing. Indeed, the sickening £3.5 billion total bill is equivalent to a third of Britain's international aid budget. But even more worryingly, this soft-touch approach to illegal migration is now tearing many great local British communities apart. For far too long, the impact of such a policy, alongside the inability to actually stop the boats, has been dismissed as a right-wing concern. But it's becoming blindingly obvious that the majority of honest, hard-working Brits have had enough, terrified about the safety of their families and the nefarious impact on local businesses. Well, today, the government finally started to listen, announcing plans to try and cut the number of expensive hotels in favour of RAF bases and, in the future, perhaps, even barges.
These hotels take valuable assets from communities and place pressures on local public services. We must not elevate the well-being of illegal migrants above those of the British people. Accommodation for migrants should meet their essential living needs and nothing more, because we cannot risk becoming a magnet for the millions of people who are displaced and seeking better economic prospects.
As is so often the case with this government, though, the rhetoric was without doubt correct, but I think the delivery still leaves a lot to be desired. Jenrick admitted that high-class hotels will continue to be used in the medium term, which is completely unacceptable to me and most Brits. And while the use of barges and ships is being considered, no specific plans have been announced yet, and I want to know why. Then there's the issue of the Dam Busters HQ, RAF Scampton, with the local council planning a legal injunction to stop its use. Rishi Sunak has made stopping the boats by Christmas his top political priority, and he is right to do so. But he has to start treating the situation like the clear and present national emergency that it is. The invasion of the UK via the Channel is only getting worse, and a softly approach to appease Tory wets and the Labour open border opposition will provide no deterrent effect. We're in a cost of lockdown crisis, so to shell out literally billions, For economic migrants to spend years on end living for free in luxury hotels where they don't work and are fed and clothed, usually using our taxpayer cash, that's not just morally repugnant, it's politically toxic too. So I welcome today's announcement, but it's only the very start. And I still have reservations that Sunak doesn't understand the scale of the threat while he tries to convince us he could implement his plan while remaining a member of the ECHR. Home Secretary Superwoman Suella Braverman knows what needs to be done to stop this threat to our borders. The PM has to let her do so. But to respond now, my superstar panel, political commentator Dominique Samuels, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and making his debut, it is great to have him here, the former top Labour advisor Matthew Laza. So Dominique, the government had to do something, right? This is completely impractical. Hundreds and hundreds of hotels being taken up and down the country, destroying communities, costing millions of pounds a day. My concern is I just wonder if they've done enough, because these 3 RAF bases are only going to take a few thousand illegals each.
I think the problem is it doesn't feel like a solution again. It just feels like a sticking plaster. And as is the trend with this government, they appear to say all of the right things, but then when it actually gets down to the nitty-gritty of it, they're not doing very much. We can all agree that housing thousands of people in hotels at the cost of $6 million a day, I think it's probably more, is completely ridiculous. It's sickening. Our homeless are treated worse than that. And then there are still some people that say the idea of housing people on ports in these construction, what they call barrages, is inhumane. But then when you look at northern France, I mean, the Calais jungle was officially closed down some years ago, but people are still basically living in forests, which is more inhumane. I think the latter is. But then again, at the same time, I do think that there is incompetence at the heart of the way the government is handling this. So if you look at some of the people that are actually coming over here, I think there is some stuff that we could do. For example, with regards to the Afghan resettlement scheme. Now, the people that are coming over here from Afghanistan, that's increased sixfold, yet only 22 people have actually been resettled here. So perhaps we could also look at the amount of people that are processing these asylum claims. We don't want them fast-tracked just for the sake of it, but clearly something needs to be done. So perhaps a happy medium is needed with people from certain nationalities, I suppose.
Adam, do you have any problem with the concept of housing illegal migrants in barges or disused ferries?
No, I'd rather them there than in local hotels. I've got a local migrant hotel near me, and when I'm in the High Road, in Epping High Road, you see migrants walking up and down, not knowing what to do with themselves all day. I was in
they're not working, of course.
Right, so I was in the council offices just a few weeks ago, and they was coming in there begging for more food, even though the hotel were meant to be feeding them, or was feeding them. Now, one thing that I would like to emphasise is that we don't know who many of these people are. We don't know their criminal backgrounds, we don't know their beliefs. Now, we cannot keep allowing tens of thousands of unknown men, 90% are men that come across on these boats, just wandering around our streets. Now, if the military bases are going to be locked, and we've still got to face that we're going to have 2,000 odd people in a military base. What do we do with them from then?
And what's fascinating to me today is you've got the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, saying, not in my backyard. He doesn't want his RAF base to be taken up with 2,000.
Many on the left like to sort of grandstand and virtual signal until it affects them. And then suddenly, when it's on their front door, they don't like it.
Well, Matthew Laza, obviously, look, you're a former Labour advisor, but did you not think it was actually quite a bold move from Sunak today? Because as part of the announcement, he said, look, I am going to take one of these big migrant bases in my constituency. Was that moral leadership from him here?
It is, but if the Foreign Secretary doesn't want one in his constituency, it's not much of moral leadership from the government. Look, we need a plan. I mean, what we need is a lot fewer initiatives and a lot more delivery on the ground. I mean, the barges, which were this morning's story, there isn't a single barge. They do not exist. It is a completely hypothetical question as to whether a single migrant... There will never be a barge because, they haven't ordered... they haven't actually put anything in place. But the hotels...
So Robert Jenrick said it was something that the government is working on.
but it's a great headline for the average Brit to think, oh, they're going to have barges. So
absolutely, but we don't need headlines. We need a solution, which means that migrants aren't wandering up and down your high street.
That's your point, isn't it, Dominique?
Yeah.
We've had enough of tough talk. We need to see tough action.
Because the problem is only getting bigger. What was the record figure recently? 160,000 applications. And the people that have come from across the channel in 2022, most of their applications haven't even had a response on them.
Plus, we're facing 80,000 more this year.
And then what happens when they want their families to come over? Let's times that figure by 3 or 4 now.
But isn't one of the problems, Matthew Laza, is that the bleeding heart Liberals on the left are the people who are putting the fear of God into the government, because your lot would say, this is inhumane. It's inhumane to hold illegal migrants in ferries or on army bases.
What my lot want to do is get the system sorted. We say that applications are processed and people who shouldn't be here are sent back to the country from which they came. Last year, Germany was able to send 48,000 migrants back to the country where people first arrived, because obviously Germany's still in the European Union and because of the way the Dublin Treaty works, where people have to apply in the country.
But they dump their ID before they get here, so where do we send them back? They're gaming our system. We are a soft touch.
Well, we're a soft touch partly because after, 13 years of a Tory-led government, we still have an immigration system that doesn't work.
Matthew, look, I know you're a former Labour advisor, but you're not, in all seriousness, sitting here saying that Labour would be tougher on the borders than the Conservative Party. Your leader, Keir Starmer, is on the record saying that he believes in free movement.
I think that we would have a system that works. I think we wouldn't have had years of the government refusing to cooperate properly with the French. There's been a movement on that, and fair play to Rishi for having got a bit of movement on that. But we need a proper system in place. Today, Tory MPs voted against a cross-border migrant police force, which Labour's in favour of. So it's not all bleeding heart Liberals.
We could have changed the modern slavery legislation in this country last year to stop the Albanians coming over. We didn't.
And
Rishi,
what I will say
it's all PR.
is there are also a lot of bleeding heart Liberals at the moment within the Conservative Party, and they are causing a huge issue as well, the Tory Whigs.
We need a deterrent, and that is the main thing.
Adam Brooks, Dominic Samuels, Matthew Laza, great to have you all here, and my superstar panel will be back very soon. But also on the way, as The Guardian scores a massive own goal with its links to slavery after lecturing so many others, is it about to get worse, with the hard left's mouthpiece opening the floodgates for British reparations? Well, Tory party deputy chairman Lee Anderson is going to deliver his unflinching verdict shortly. But next in the clash, as a Polish woman claims on mainstream US TV that she is the missing Madeleine McCann, should the Home Office still be giving £300,000 in new funding for the UK investigation? Well, two of Scotland Yard's most respected former detectives, Mike Neville and Shabnam Chowdhury, are joined by broadcaster Bushra Sheikh to duke it out right after the break. But I'm fascinated to hear your views on this. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Do you think it was insensitive for Dr. Phil to bring on a woman claiming to be Madeleine McCann before she's actually been DNA tested? Or actually, is this going to bring her case to international attention at GB News? You can find our poll there on Twitter. And the results in the clash straight after the break.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us four, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end. I can't wink. Britain's listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Lee Anderson and Konstantin Kisin on the way, but first, the clash. And Polish woman Julia Wendell has become a dubious social media sensation after claiming she is Madeleine McCann, 16 years on from her disappearance. Going mainstream on the hit US TV show Dr. Phil, the 21-year-old claimed to remember details from Maddie's tragic trip to Portugal and pointed out that she shares distinctive features with the then 3-year-old. Watch.
Madeleine has this defect in the iris, and you have that same phenomenon, right?
I mean, very faded, a little faded now, but yes.
Have you tested your DNA?
Via helped me with ancestry. We are waiting for results.
This all can be resolved very simply if you provide a DNA sample to Scotland Yard, for example. Are you willing to do that?
If DNA will show that my roots come from Britain, I will do this.
Julia's sensational but questionable appearance comes as the Home Office reportedly prepares to announce £300,000 in fresh funding for Maddie's investigation. But with £13 million already spent to no avail, should the Home Office continue to fund the search for Madeleine McCann? Fascinated to know your thoughts on this. I know it's an issue that many of us feel we have a stake in. Dan at gbnews.uk. Vote in our poll at gbnews on Twitter. But to debate this now, I'm joined by former Scotland Yard Chief Inspector Mike Neville, former Detective Superintendent at Scotland Yard Shadnam Chowdhury, and the broadcaster Bushra Sheikh. Great to have all of you here. Mike Neville, you say yes, we should continue funding the Madeleine McCann case. Why?
Well, there's not very few children under 10 ever go vanished like they have. In the last 20 years, there's about 4 or 5, less than 5 in the UK. Now, I've got 4 children. If any of those went missing in such circumstances, I'd expect everything to be done. If this funding is granted, however, it's got to be used for proper reasons. Now, they are also, I suggest there are leads here. There are images all over the world that could be used on Facebook, on passport indices, child porn videos are catalogued, and they could be used because Madeleine was wearing distinctive clothing, and as you've said in your report there, she has this very distinctive mark in her eye. So my expertise is around finding people with images, and I don't think that has been done. The police have spent too much time tracing witnesses who didn't really know much the day after, never mind 20 years down the track.
Okay,
so yes,
and Mike, can I just ask...
be used properly.
Okay, great, Mike. I understand that. Can I just ask specifically about Julia Vendel, this woman who's appearing on Dr. Phil? Now, she says she does have the distinctive marking in her eye. Do you think investigators should be taking her seriously, or is she a crank?
She's a crank. It's a family have already come forward. That mark in the eye is in about 1 in 10,000 people, so that can be discounted. However, it could be used by a computer to try and find people who do look like Madeleine. And if she is alive today or was taken by paedophiles and filmed, there should be images available. And I don't think these avenues have been properly assessed. The police are very good at old-fashioned methods, but when it comes to digital policing, they're in the Stone Age.
Okay. Shabnam Chowdhury is a former detective superintendent at Scotland Yard. You take a different position on this to Mike Neville, and you say, no, we've poured enough money into the Madeleine McCann case.
Well, I think Mike makes some really good points there, some really important points. I think the key issue here is that you've got a 4-year-old child that's gone missing, and any parent would leave no stone unturned and would make every effort to continuously try to find their child. But here we have £13 million spent in the last 16 years, and lots of the inquiries that Mike talks about may well have or have not been undertaken. But within the UK, there are more than 12,000 long-term missing people on the police books at the moment. 265,000 people are reported missing every year. 47,000 those are children. So there's a significant number of people across the UK who are reported missing. And what I'd be interested to know is what sort of funds are consistently used to try to locate those people back here in the UK. There's a lot of money spent on trying to find Madeleine McCann. You know, what information and how much work are the Portuguese police doing in terms of trying to locate her? The onus should be on them because it's within their jurisdiction. They have all the right information and so on.
But they have never done a correct job, in my opinion. Look, Bushra Sheikh, you've just heard from 2 of the biggest names in British police scene who disagree on whether we should keep on funding the Madeleine McCann case. From a punter's perspective, where do you stand on this, Bushra? Do you want the money to keep being spent?
No, 13 million is far more than enough money to carry out an investigation. And like, both of the panellists have said, surely in this time, so much must have been done. £300,000 of taxpayers' money can be well spent in other places. If the McCanns want to further this investigation, I'm sure they can do like a GoFundMe, or they could fund the money themselves. Right now, just using Julia Wendell as an example to say she could be that missing child, they can go out there and fund that themselves. I mean, 300,000 on top of 14 million pounds is a lot of money. I could name you 5 missing children right now in London that have gone missing that this money can go towards.
But don't you have huge sympathy for Kate and Gerry McCann? Can you understand why they want the police to keep on looking into missing Maddie?
Absolutely. Look, I'm a mother. I've got 3 children, and I can empathise with that. And I know when it comes to parents, you will do everything that you can try and do to find that child. But at the moment, we are looking at a case that is more than 15 years. It's already had £13 million spent on it. And now that the Met Office has asked the Home Office to provide another further 300,000, I'm sure there are more people out there like me that are not going to be happy for that. And to do a DNA test for this particular young woman isn't going to cost £300,000.
OK, but you think we should at least take Julia Vendal's claim serious enough to go through the official processes and at least rule her out? Or do you think this could be Maddie?
I'm not saying that this could be Maddie. I'm saying from the perspective of a parent, if somebody has come forward to say that they might be Maddie, it's not going to cost much money to just prove that she is or she is. And I mean, personally, I don't think that she is. I do believe that they are saying that she was perhaps trafficked. She was trafficked to Poland.
Exactly. So let's get the test. Let's get the test. Why not? Why not? At least rule it out officially. So, Mike Neville, do you want to come back there? Because Bushra and Shabnam both disagree with you. They don't want the money to go to this case.
I can only reiterate that we can talk about big numbers, about 250,000 people going missing every year. Most of them, in my experience, because I ran a missing persons unit, they're back in 4 hours. There's very, very few people vanish. And as I've said, in the last 20 years, there are less than 5 children under 10 in this country that have vanished in this way. And all of those deserve the same treatment. But we should be unrelenting in this. We spent 500 billion on COVID and the like. So I'm sure that 30 million to find the missing child is not a bad thing. The investigation must go, it must be done properly. And I just fear that, and I'll say this, these things haven't been done with images. The police there's a report on digital policing that said they were a Betamax police force last year. And that's the problem.
Yeah, and that I absolutely agree with. Absolutely fascinating debate. Thank you so much to the former Scotland Yard Chief Inspector Mike Neville, former Detective Superintendent at the Yard Shabnam Chowdhury, and the broadcaster Bushra Sheikh. But who do you agree with on this? As a young woman goes on American TV on the show Dr. Phil, claiming that she is Madeleine McCann, should the Home Office still be giving £300,000 in new funding for the UK investigation? Maybe you think this revelation from the woman who claims that she's Maddie means they should pump even more money in. Well, Fred on Twitter writes, no, absolutely not. This isn't going to achieve anything and the money can be used elsewhere. It's also disproportionate considering the many other children that have gone missing that haven't had these funds. From Sammy, sadly, there comes a time when you have to say enough is enough. If they haven't found her or what happened to her after all this time, they are hardly likely to now. And from Tina, as a mother, I could not rest until I had a definitive answer. Whatever that may be, we spend much more money on much less important issues, so it's a yes from me. And your verdict is now, and I'm surprised by this one, I have to be honest, I thought it would be closer. But just 11% of you think more funding should be given to the Maddie investigation. 89% of you saying absolutely not. Coming up. Was it wrong for the actor Guy Pearce to issue a pathetic, snivelling apology for simply suggesting non-trans actors should be able to play trans roles? Well, the comedian, host of the Trigonometry podcast, Konstantin Kisner, is going to speak out on that soon. But next, as The Guardian scores a massive woke own goal with its own links to slavery after lecturing so many others, is it about to get worse with the hard left's mouthpiece now opening the floodgates for lots of British reparations? Well, I'm delighted to say Tory Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson, not the biggest fan of The Guardian, he's going to deliver his unflinching verdict live in the studio straight after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, is back in the studio with me now, and it's a perfect day to have him with his enemies over at the failing lefty rag The Guardian, deciding that this case of self-flagellation and promise of a pitiful £10 million over 10 years because of the slave trade links of its founder, John Edward Taylor, is the most important news story in the entire world. Look at this. Look at this, the front page of The Guardian today, and there it is. Who cares about anything else going on in the world? They want to talk about themselves. And this is, of course, because the Scott Trust, which owns The Guardian, knows that they are opening the reparation floodgates. Less than 24 hours after the news broke, our wannabe globalist overlords at the UN are already demanding the same sort of restorative justice be expanded across the nation, with Professor Vereen Shepherd and Dominique Day both calling on Britons to lobby the government and even the royal family to begin, quote, rigorous self-investigation and pay reparations. So it's all grimly predictable. I'm delighted to welcome Westminster's toughest talking MP, Lee Anderson, back into the studio. I mean, Lee, this is fascinating on so many levels, right? Because firstly, this is not the biggest story in the world, you folks at The Guardian. It's very arrogant for you to think so. Secondly, you're giving £10 million over 10 years. That's nothing. It's not going to change a thing. And you're doing it for political reasons, aren't you? They want the reparation floodgates to open.
That is more namby-pamby virtue signalling from The Guardian again. Please move that away from me, because it's upsetting me at the moment. What happened last time?
I will dispose of The Guardian. Yes, in your important new role, Lee, you can't rip up The Guardian anymore.
But what I will
far
say,
too professional
I am
for that.
sick to death of these namby-pambys apologising for our history. Are they going to start apologising for us sending children up chimneys, children down coal mines, women down coal mines? We did some pretty nasty stuff in our own country and around the world, but, you know, I always say, Dan, that our history should be a mirror for us to look at. We are a great country. How about The Guardian, for once, printing some positive stuff about this country. This country, our great country, has been a gift to the world. We've given it railways, we've given it technology, we've given it science, we've given it medicines. How about saying we're a great country for once? They need to shut up.
Lee, I put it to you that The Guardian actually hates everything about Britain.
Well, they hate me, they hate you, they hate this place, and they, you know, like you say, Dan, they hate our country. They're almost ashamed of our history, our heritage, our culture. Like I say, why can't we be positive about our great country? You know, as you said earlier, you know, there's people dying to get to this country, risking their lives over the channel in the dinghies to get here. You know, we are a great country. This country is a gift to the world.
Exactly, and you can be proud of our history, like I am proud of the British Empire. You can also acknowledge not everything was great, but none of us have been directly impacted by the slave trade. And also, why did they never remind everyone that we were the first in the world to abolish the slave trade?
Indeed, and listen, Dan, I've got friends from India. You know, they grew up in India, loving this country, loving everything about Great Britain. And what do they do when they get to a certain age? They move here. They try and get their family here. They want to set up a business here, have a life here, have their children here. We are a great country. We colonise these countries, yet in these countries they want to come and live here. That answers your question.
Indeed, and I feel very similar way about New Zealand, where I was born, of course.
Never been.
It was a great country because of the fact that it became part of the British Empire. Now, look, from The Guardian to the BBC, I couldn't believe
Stop it.
this week. I know, I'm triggering you. I'm triggering you with all of this trauma. But look, I wanted to show you this because it's Andrew Marr, right, who was, of course, up until the end of 2021, the biggest political presenter of the BBC, the person who had to interview Boris all the time, and we always thought he came to it with an agenda. Well, now he has revealed his agenda to the New Statesman. Look at this.
As somebody who wants a Labour victory at the next election, is that I'm alarmed that perhaps Labour is underestimating Rishi Sunak, and I think the Prime Minister is doing far better.
So, Lee, that was the bloke that we were meant to trust at all of the critical points like Brexit, the Red Wall, and he's now openly admitting that he wants a Labour government. I mean, the BBC is crooked, isn't it?
It is. I mean, he's only telling us, Dan, what we already know. We know the BBC is completely biased. We know, like The Guardian, it hates our country. It's always apologising. Every time he switches it on, I don't switch it on, by the way. But, you know, they're always apologising for our history, our culture, just like The Guardian. And this Andrew Marr clip, it's actually quite disgusting. You know, actually, this is a taxpayer-funded organisation, supposed to be unbiased, supposed to be impartial, supposed to give us the correct news, you know, the correct reporting on politics. And what do we find out now? That all along, a wolf in sheep's clothing is on our screens, pushing his own political agenda. It's absolutely disgusting.
Plus, they haven't done anything to deal with Gary Lineker after the disgusting comparison that he made to your party, which is actually, by the way, doing the humane thing by trying to stop the boats, because if you don't stop the boats, you're empowering people smugglers and disgusting criminal gangs, and he compares that to Nazi Germany. I mean, and he's still in a job.
Well, it's another case, Dan, of sweeping stuff under the carpet. It's a cover-up. We know it's a cover-up. Look, I stopped paying my BBC licence many, many years ago. Stood up in that place in Parliament, say they won't get another penny off me. They're letting the British public down. They're constantly attacking us as a party, as a government. That, like I say, they hate our history and our culture. And, you know, people don't take it as seriously as they used to. It's supposed to be an impartial, taxpayer-funded organisation that covers, you know, all of us, all our opinions, but it doesn't. It's quite clearly biased, and Andrew Marr proves it.
Now, look, on the show yesterday, I said, will the real Keir Starmer please stand up? So let me show you this, because what are we meant to think about whether he is an enemy of Jeremy Corbyn or his best mate who he wanted to be Prime Minister? Watch this.
I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who led our party through some really difficult times, who energised our movement, and who's a friend as well as a colleague.
There you are, shaking hands, looking like good pals. Were you pals? Sure. Have you lost him as a friend? Because he said, no, he never considered you a friend. A friend is someone who you hang out with, who comes round for tea.
Well, we were never friends in that sense.
You were never friends?
No.
And does it...
So how can we trust a word that this bloke says?
Well, you can't. I mean, what a slippery so-and-so he is there. I mean, it just proves that he spent, you know, a few years campaigning to make Jeremy the Prime Minister, stood on the same platform, was in the shadow cabinet, telling everybody what a great person he was. All of a sudden, He's the leader now, the Labour Party, and what's he done? He's pulled that big dagger out and stuck it right in between his shoulder blades. What a despicable wolf in sheep's clothing type of character he is.
Yeah, and it's quite worrying, isn't it, to have a potential future Prime Minister of this country who actually is a moral vacuum. I feel like, Lee, he will say anything to get elected. There's actually no sense of values that he lives by, and I think it's so important that our politicians have a set of values.
Well, this is the one thing, Dan, we keep hearing over and over again, out on the street in Ashfield, in Parliament, wherever we go, is that this man, he will say and do anything to take control of this country. You know, the people of this country should be very, very wary of Starmer. I mean, Corbyn's supposed to be his friend, his comrade, and he's doing this. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
It is. It's very worrying. Now, look, Lee, I was told that you've had another run-in today with that weird loser, the anti-Brexit campaigner, Steve Bray. Let's have a watch.
Well, not 100 grand a year like you, Mr. Anderson. I hope you're going to give some of that to the food banks in Ashfield. I've got a 3-point plan for you. Have you? Get the job. Then. Oh, yeah. Yeah? Get the line. Are you going to give any of that 100,000 to charity? Yes, 45 grand going in income tax. It keeps funding. Oh, right, yeah.
Sorry, I wish he'd take you up on that plan, you know. Well, it would be better for Britain if he did.
I mean, he's a bit of a freak show. I mean, he's a tourist attraction. He's there every single Wednesday with his little crowd of, I think, the unemployed people. They're obviously not contributing towards society. He's the public nuisance #1 in London. I don't know why he dresses like that. I don't know why he walks up and down making those silly noises, singing silly songs. But, you know, every time he sees me, he makes a beeline for me. But you know what? People like me and you, Dan, decent, law-abiding citizens going to work, paying our taxes, and that's the result.
Yeah. Get a haircut and get a real job,
Yeah,
Steve,
indeed.
As the old song goes. Lee Anderson, great to have you back. Thank you so much, Lee. But also coming up, as public satisfaction with the Aileen Health Service falls to an all-time low of just 29%. 29% of us satisfied with the NHS. Is it finally time to end the blind worship of our health service and scrap it for a modern alternative? That's the big debate with my superstar panel soon. But next, was it wrong for the actor Guy Pearce to issue a pathetic, snivelling apology for simply suggesting non-trans actors should be able to play trans characters? Well, comedian and free speech advocate, host of the Trigonometry podcast, Constantine Kissin, speaks out on this big culture war straight after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians
to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Konstantin Kissin is tonight's outsider. Now, one of Australia's biggest actors, best known for his starring roles in the hit show Neighbours and Hollywood blockbuster Memento, has found himself in a lefty Twitter storm after he aired his views on non-trans actors starring in trans roles. In his now-deleted tweets, Guy asked his followers, if the only people allowed to play trans characters are trans folk, then are we also suggesting the only people trans folk can play are trans characters? Surely that will limit your career as an actor. Isn't the point of an actor to be able to play anyone outside your own world? Totally fair question, if you ask me. I think the point that he's making is completely right, but predictably, the woke gatekeepers of the internet weren't having any of it, bombarding Pearce with left-wing bile that pushed the actor who actually played a drag queen, remember, in the hit film Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, into a snivelling climb down that included 3 separate apologies. Look at how long it is from the Aussie star for his, quote, insensitive comments, along with a reference to his family's privilege. Konstantin, this is so depressing, isn't it? Because here's a big actor who you would think had the balls to actually stand up for his beliefs because he actually tweeted a relatively sane but controversial in today's climate point. And within 24 hours, his climb down is astonishing.
It is an amazing world we live in, Dan, where a statement of the bleeding obvious gets you attacked like this on the internet. And of course, you know, I've been thinking about this. You know, imagine you had a friend and she said, I've got this new boyfriend and he's pretty nice, but every time I say something he doesn't agree with, he threatens to leave me and generally demands an apology and he won't give up until he gets one. It's an abusive relationship with these people. And if your livelihood depends on these people, you're always going to find that you're walking around on eggshells. So my advice to people always is, if you're in this position, is try to get out of it. You don't want your livelihood dependent on these people because you'll never be pure enough. You'll never be woke enough. They will always find some opinion that you've got that used to be absolutely acceptable until about 3 minutes ago that now makes you a phobe of some kind, and they'll keep coming after you. So I think it's a sign of the times. And you know, the mistake he's made here is apologizing, in my opinion, because it just doesn't end well and we know this. We've seen it with previous cases.
But what I find so chilling about this, Konstantin, is that if you're an actor, basically of any level of fame in any Western country around the world, you're looking at this case of Guy Pearce. He's effectively been cancelled now, by the way. Mark my words, he's not going to get another big gig or a big Netflix show after this because even the tiniest controversy means that you lose your work in Hollywood. That's how craven and woke they now are. So any other actor looking at this thinks, I'm just going to keep my opinions to myself.
Well, that's why they're doing it. The whole point of cancelling people isn't just to punish the individual. It is mainly, actually, I think, to send a signal to other people. You better not get out of line. You better not say what you think. You better not ask him. The guy didn't even say anything, just asked a question. I mean, that is the level. But of course, you're right. I think the main point of what they're doing is to signal to everybody else, keep your trap shut, keep your head down. Don't challenge this new orthodoxy. This is a religion that must not be questioned, Dan.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Even just prompting a debate, asking a question in 2023 will get you cancelled in Hollywood. It's so shocking. And can we actually just tackle the issue itself, Konstantin? Because this is one that I'm so passionate about. I cannot believe that we're now saying to actors, you can no longer act as any character unless they have all of your characteristics, your background, your skin colour, your hair colour, your sexuality. Is that what they're saying? Or, Constantine, are they actually saying, if you're white and straight, you can only play white and straight? If you're a minority, if you're trans, you can play a non-trans character. If you're black, you can play a white character. It feels like we're developing two different sets of rules in society.
Well, who knows, Dan, because the rules change every day, and what was fine yesterday is no longer okay today. But I think the main thing that we should say here is, people like you and people like me get accused of, not being liberal. I actually thought the whole point of being liberal is that people are free to do different things and do whatever they believe and try different options and so on. And to me, the reason I oppose all of this is, to me, it's the most illiberal thing in the world, where there is a small minority of people who get to tell everyone else how they ought to behave, what movies they ought to act in and not act in, what opinions they're supposed to have, and as in this case, what questions they're allowed to ask in public. This is an extraordinarily illiberal ideology, and that's why I think some of us call it a religion or a cult, because it seeks to impose its values on everybody else. The thing I think a lot of people find themselves in trouble with, if you're not paying attention to the stuff on a daily basis, you don't know what the rules are because they change every day.
Yeah. And you know what? The trans community is doing itself a disservice here, because if you want to bring attention, positive attention to your community, then you want big Hollywood names taking on trans roles. It did so much for the gay community in the 90s when big straight actors like Tom Hanks started being prepared to play gay characters. It made it feel more mainstream, more acceptable. So actually, in the end, the woke eat themselves, and they do themselves a huge disservice.
Dan, one thing we should say before we move on is I don't think it's fair to blame this on the trans community. I think it's a small minority of activists who are doing this. I'm sure you agree.
But
I think that's an important point to make.
But I absolutely agree with that. But I think these wokesters who do this are actually doing the trans community a huge disservice.
That's right. They're hurting trans people by advocating all this nonsense that I don't think most trans people subscribe to. And as you well know, there are plenty of trans people who speak out very clearly against this sort of rubbish. And I hope they continue so that their community doesn't actually get damaged by all this idiocy.
Constantine Kisson, thank you so much. And we are back with tomorrow's newspaper front pages, the media buzz, and Jim Davidson straight after this break.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as public satisfaction with the Aileen Health Service falls to an all-time low of just 29%, is it finally time to end the nationwide consecration of the NHS and scrap it for a modern alternative? That's the big debate with my superstar panel next. And tonight, I'm joined by Dominique Samuels, Adam Brooks and Matthew Larser. In her most personal interview ever, J.K. Rowling hits out at the left, woke censorship and dangerous trans extremism.
We've seen thousands of % increase in young women trying to escape their physical bodies. Should we not be asking why that's happening?
So is the Harry Potter author right to say that allowing young children to change gender is one of the worst medical scandals in a century? We'll discuss Rowling's brave remarks in the media buzz. Plus, a king on duty and a prince after vengeance. The Duke of Delusion has launched another vicious attack against the royal family while his father makes a state visit in Germany. So is Harry wrong to be blustering in the London courts just weeks before the royal coronation? Harry's biographer, Angela Levin, offers a serene take on the Sussexes shortly. Plus, comically challenged lefty Nish Kumar has branded Prime Minister Rishi Sunak an Asian C-word in a crass tirade.
If you're a young Asian, you too can be Prime Minister.
Now, unbelievably, that bloke is just about to present Pointless on the BBC. Conservative voting comic Jim Davidson reacts to that classic example of be kind lefty bile as he stands up for proper stand-up in Uncancelled later this hour. And finally, the world of show business totally rocked this morning by the shocking passing of a great.
They moan, and I think if I was being paid 15 million, I'd bag a donkey, so shut up.
Irrepressible and irreplaceable. That's Paul O'Grady, who died aged 67. We'll pay tribute soon. Also, a brand new Greatest Britain Union Jackass before the night is out. And in just a moment, the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press. That's after Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. The top story on GB News. The Immigration Minister has announced plans to stop housing asylum seekers in hotels and instead place them in disused military bases. Admitting that the use of hotels had harmed some towns, Robert Jenrick said migrants will now be placed at sites in Essex, Lincolnshire and East Sussex. The accommodation will be guarded by 24-hour security, he said, and meet migrants' essential living needs. In other news today, the Daily Mail says the Duke of Sussex's privacy claim against them should be rejected in its entirety and has been brought far too late. Associated Newspapers Limited says the legal challenges brought by Prince Harry and other celebrities, including Sir Elton John, have no real prospects of succeeding. But the legal team for Harry and others have described the publisher's bid as hopeless and plainly inappropriate. The government's announced a £1 million funding boost for synagogues and schools in a bid to crack down on anti-Semitic crime. The government says it also wants to ensure criminals who threaten Jewish communities to feel the full force of the law. The funding will cover security measures such as CCTV and alarm systems. A quarter of religiously motivated hate crimes in the UK between 2021 and 2022 targeted the Jewish community. Now, the Queen Consort is said to be deeply saddened at the death of TV presenter and famous dog lover Paul O'Grady, who died suddenly last night at the age of 67. She said he had a warm heart and an infectious sense of humour which lit up the lives of so many. His partner, Andre Portasio, said he died unexpectedly but peacefully. And tonight, the German president has hailed a new chapter in relations between his country and the UK as he welcomed the King and Queen Consort to a state banquet in Berlin. And a warning, if you're watching on television, there are some flashing images ahead. King Charles and Camilla have been greeting guests who arrived at the Bellevue Palace. President Steinmeier thanked the King for choosing Germany as his first foreign visit as head of the royal family, describing that as a tremendous personal gesture. His Majesty has pledged to strengthen the connections between their two countries.
Our countries are working together to promote global health, to help developing countries overcome their challenges and prosper, and to advance the urgent and vital journey towards net zero. And of course, we stand side by side in protecting and advancing our shared democratic values.
His Majesty King Charles speaking in Berlin tonight. That's all from me. I'm back in an hour. Now back to Dan.
Welcome back to tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. The first front pages are in the Metro leads on the death of showbiz legend Paul O'Grady after his unexpected passing aged 67. Thanks for all the joy, Paul, is the headline. Queen Camilla and Elton John among those to pay tribute and will pay tribute later on this hour. The Independent continues its campaign to let an Afghani war hero who worked with British forces stay in the UK amid plans to deport him to Rwanda. It also carries a picture of King Charles's and Queen Camilla's state visit to Germany today. The Daily Star has fun with the discovery of a massive new hole that's ripped through our sun, which is the size of 20 planet Earths. It's thought the gaping hole could cause havoc with our mobile phones tomorrow. Not quite sure how. And the Britain-hating Guardian leads on plans for the UK to capture carbon and store it in undersea caverns. But more importantly, the lefty paper doubles down on its slavery virtue signalling, reporting on UN calls for British institutions to investigate their own slavery links in the wake of its woke apology. I'd say save your money. Don't bother. My superstar panel back with me now. Political commentator Dominique Samuels, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the former Labour advisor Matthew Laza. Now, the NHS, it's become so cult-like in recent years, hasn't it, that mere suggestions on how to save it from itself sparks outrage from loyal disciples. But a damning new poll shows patient satisfaction with the health service sensationally collapsed to just 29% last year, the lowest level ever recorded in the annual British Social Attitude Survey. It comes at a time of crippling staff shortages and a 9 million strong patient waiting list that's killing Brits before their time. The left in particular are quick to blame Tory governments for the NHS collapse, forgetting that the service is being pumped with and hemorrhaging more money than ever before. It could save a bob or two by scrapping woke diversity hires at £150,000 a pop and holding back on the virtue signalling. But isn't the real truth that the totally absurd overreaction to the pandemic was the catalyst for the NHS's recent woes? The irony is that the obsession to protect the NHS during COVID, remember that? I'll never forget it, ended up being the very thing that's brought it to its knees. So, Dominique Samuels, I think it's time for the country to have a fundamental debate. It needs to be a bipartisan debate about the NHS. That's the only way it's going to work. But you say, actually, there needs to be a referendum on the future of the NHS. What do you mean?
Yeah, because when it comes to issues that are so pivotal like this, I think in terms of its importance, it's similar to that of our membership of the European Union. The NHS has become really a representation of Britain. It's sort of a patriotic part of what we mean as a country, because so many other countries do not have a health service that's free at the point of use.
But many others do, and are run much more effectively than ours. And we have to start being honest about that, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, many other countries do have similar health services, but for example, in countries in Europe, there is sort of a privatised element of it where people have forms of health insurance, like, for example, in France, that's subsidised by the government. But, you know, the problem with the NHS is only going to get worse as our population increases, as our population ages, and the many problems that people have change. And the NHS quite clearly isn't up to speed. So I think there should be two options for people. Do you want to see our health service move to an insurance-based model, or do you want it to still remain free at the point of use? And what caveats do you want with that?
That would be the question. Matthew Laza, isn't it the fault of your party, Labour, for fetishising the NHS to such an extent that now all political parties are too terrified to actually have an honest debate about it, and the solution is just pump more money in. Just pump more money in. Well, we've seen that doesn't work. The NHS has got to be scrapped, doesn't it?
No,
it's got to start again.
It doesn't have to be scrapped, but it has to be improved. And I think what there is a huge danger for the left and for the Labour Party if it doesn't acknowledge the literal pain that people across the country are suffering and the pain that they feel about the NHS. So I think they need to be one step ahead and acknowledge that although the model is great, it needs reform.
The model isn't great, Matthew. The model isn't great. Why should...
We still spend less than most other European countries.
Look, I know it's a national religion, but there are very sane people, I mean, you probably don't think she's sane, but people who I respect, like Anne Widdecombe, have been sane for years. This is not a sane system. I'll tell you why. Why on earth should a multi-millionaire be able to go to the NHS GP for free? Other countries have much more sensible policies in place where you pay a small fee to go and visit your GP. It means you get amazing service. You, like Australia, for example, you get to book in with the doctor that you want, when you want, and you're treated like a customer. And then you've got lots more money left for the life-saving cancer treatments, for example.
I think the key factor.
But what's insane about that? Why it's an ideological thing.
I think it's very hard to move from the model we've got to an insurance system without making sure that nobody's left behind. But the NHS has to change.
But what's
and
wrong
the
with
profession
rich?
itself
But on a very
that.
practical basis, right? What is wrong with rich people paying to go to see the GP? Why do you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with it, but the way the NHS works is they've already paid for it through their taxes. It's the national contract that you've paid for it through your taxes. Yeah, now, in order to do that, the NHS has got to be better to maintain that national contract,
but Adam,
the deal between people.
But it's not better, and Adam, it frustrates me so much because I make sure I don't go to see an NHS GP because I want to protect the NHS, and I protect the NHS by paying to see a private GP. But why I get so angry is that if, for example, I ever needed cancer treatment, the NHS very often isn't investing in the best drugs because we're wasting so much money on wasted, stupid GP appointments because of this mad connection that we have to a philosophical idea that everything should be free.
No, I don't think... I think it needs completely overhauling. I don't think it needs completely changed. I think that the management system of the NHS, we could give the NHS twice the amount of money that we do, the government, and it would still fall short because there's middle management, there's corruption, there's wastage. I mean, I know suppliers that used to have one tariff for the NHS and one for businesses. And the NHS tariff was sometimes double the prices that businesses would pay because these idiots or these corrupt, management teams would pay it. Now, a lot of the problems stem with the NHS. And look, the Tories have made so many mistakes over the last 10 years. But Blair and Brown signed the NHS up to some unaffordable loans. I forget what they're called now, the scheme that they do. That some hospitals, large parts of their budgets go towards these loans that they cannot afford. We have hospitals that are still paying, they've got another 10 years to pay these loans from these schemes. Now, I love the fact that I can go to the NHS for free, and so can anyone else.
Why?
And,
Why?
Look,
this is what I don't understand because
Dan,
it's giving
I pay enough
you
in
worse
taxes.
treatment. Yeah, but it's going to give you worse treatment when you really need the NHS, right? And that's why I just honestly feel like we need to have an honest debate about this, and we actually have to lose the weird emotional connection we have to the idea of everything being free at the point of use.
I know what you're saying there, but again, as what you said earlier, a lot of the problems stem from us becoming the national COVID service over the last few years.
Well,
we've got a waiting list of 7.3 million people. Now, our CMOs and our health officers have to take some sort of responsibility for that. But instead, we gave them awards.
Well, look, it's a mess, and we all opposed it at the time. I opposed the NHS receiving the Victoria Cross for that reason. But look, I think we need to have a national debate.
Something's got to happen.
And Whether it ends up in a referendum or not, I don't know. But I think there does need to be a bipartisan debate about the NHS. That Labour and the
But Dan, never going to be bipartisan.
Dan, would we know what we're voting for if the wrong answer comes up?
Well, there you go.
You know.
Now, finally, Labour loudmouth Angela Rayner got more than she bargained for at PMQs today when going on the attack against Dominic Raab, who's previously been accused of bullying civil servants. Watch.
Deputy Prime Minister knows firsthand the misery caused by thugs and their intimidating behaviour. So can I ask him, under his new anti-social behaviour, does he think more bullies will be brought to justice?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I can reassure the House I've never called anyone scum.
Rayner's sheepish face at the end said it all there. She'd been owned. And if you don't remember, here's why. Labour's deputy leader was forced into a grovelling apology in 2021 for going on an aggressive rant where she did use that word about all Tories.
We cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute vile, banana republic, vile, nasty, Etonian, piece of scum!
What's that about vile politicians and glass houses? Matthew Laza, Adam Brooks, Dominic Samuels, do stand by, because coming up in the media buzz, is J.K. Rowling right to say that children being allowed to swap genders is one of the biggest medical scandals of the past century? My superstar panel will be back to thrash that one out soon. But next, with the Duke of Delusion lashing out at his family just as his father kicks off his first state visit as king, is reopening old wounds a bad idea ahead of May's coronation? Well, Angela Levin certainly thinks so. Prince Harry's biographer live with me in the studio straight after the break.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
controversies and issues.
With us four, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end.
I can't believe I can't
Britain's
wink.
listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Jim Davidson on the way, but first, the King and Queen Consort arrived in Berlin today for the start of a 3-day tour in Germany, their first state visit since the death of the late Queen Elizabeth II. But while the King dutifully met Germany's president at the Brandenburg Gate, a national symbol of peace and unity, there's little of that coming from his treacherous son, Prince Harry. Currently in London for yet another battle with British media, the Duke of Sussex has accused the royal family of withholding information from him about phone hacking because they didn't want him to bring a legal claim against the press. Following this predictable attack from Harry, the King will surely be feeling vindicated that he snubbed meeting his son, before flying to Germany. He said he was too busy, and I very much support that. I'm delighted to be joined now by Prince Harry's biographer, Angela Levin. Angela, this is all so craven now, isn't it? Harry said he was far too scared for his security to come to the UK to be at the coronation, but he's prepared to turn up
in a taxi.
In a taxi for a legal hearing that he doesn't even need to be at.
Yes. The big question is, why is he really here?
Why do you think?
I can't believe it is to give support to the other celebrities that is in there. It's a nonsense. I think the first thing is that he wants to beat his father. This was going to be the first few days that he was in France, and it's his first outing abroad after becoming king. Very, very important. Should be respected. And he's come there because he knew he would make the front page.
So he's stealing the headlines
He's stealing the headlines.
Which he did used to do, didn't he?
But also saying, I'm the one on the front page, I should be ruling, because he's got a very weird feeling now that he should be running the royal family. He needs to fix it, he says. But that's not on.
So
the other one,
Harry,
I've got another one.
And I'll come to that in one second. just quickly to pick up on that point. Do you think Harry believes that he should be king?
I think he does, yes. I think he wants to crash this monarchy and take over with Meghan. But that means Meghan will be in charge. Hallelujah.
Sorry, I interrupted. What was your other?
The other one is that Meghan has sent him over because he wouldn't do anything that she didn't agree to see whether he would be allowed back in America because of the drugs. And if he wasn't, well, something else might happen. But it's a test run, I think.
Before the coronation.
To see that, yes, whether he can do that. And the third thing is that he needs to feel that he's worth and that he's strong and that this country needs him. I mean, he said a few quotes that were just extraordinary, like, I love this country, but because of the criminal associated newspapers which bring out the Mail and the Mail on Sunday, I fear that it will collapse, it will be crushed,
The guy's become a conspiracy theorist, hasn't he? I mean, this is properly nuts.
Yes, it is nuts, because if he loved the country, why did he say he didn't like it and go to America? I mean, he's very, very muddled. Everything about him is contradictory. Like you said at the beginning, that he doesn't... he wants a huge amount of safety, but comes in an ordinary taxi. And he looked so smug. Did you see the pictures of him walking into the law courts? He looks so smug because he's doing...
And by the way, look at this, Angela, look at this. Don't you find it ironic? Harry was slagging off his brother, Prince William, for his baldness in the autobiography Spare. And I'm just saying, perhaps that was a silly thing to do.
Yes.
Looking at those images.
He's lost lot of his hair quite recently, hasn't he?
Which I have sympathy for.
Yes, I think it's very difficult for men to do that.
As a man of William's age. But I just thought Harry was the one that had a go at William for losing his hair.
Yes, but he was awful because he said, now he's lost all his hair, I'm pleased to see that he looks far less than my mother. My mother, not our mother. And what a cruel thing to say to somebody.
I describe that as God's punishment. He's lost a lot of hair.
It's gone a lot.
The other thing is, Angela, we have to point out that Associated deny all of these claims. One of the private investigators that Harry's team are relying on has recanted all of his evidence. So, look, I don't want to prejudge anything, but the point is, this case seems to be falling apart anyway. Harry seems to have a weird obsession with the British press. Why does he not just go and live his life happily in the US like he said he wanted to? Instead, he's obsessed with destroying the free press in Great Britain. It is totally bizarre.
This is one of his aims, huge aims. And he said before that, you know, one of my duties, I mean, he does it as if he's the only person who can do this sort of thing, is to wipe out this, the press that actually are so criminal. But it's not his business.
They're not criminal. They just write stories about him that he doesn't like.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's free speech, and it's got nothing to do with him. He's really almost not a citizen of the UK anymore. He's living over there. What is he doing, messing around with us? It's just not his business.
And also, by the way, you know, famous and powerful people trying to control the media is nothing new. And all of the lefties who love Harry, they should actually start realising what his real aims are here. It is too new to the British media. That is terrifying in a democracy. Look, we obviously respect the British royal family, but they are a public institution. They have to be held to account by journalists. And Harry has to be held to account by journalists as well. Yes. Angela, just a word about King Charles, because I actually thought it was very brave of the monarch to say to Harry, you know what, I've had enough. I'm too busy.
Well, he can't have seen him. It would have been a most terrible error, because whatever he would have said to Harry, other than, you know, what a shame it's raining, he would have kept to sell. And you can't afford to do that. And if it started with asking for one apology, he would sit there running through a host of apologies that he wants in great detail. And particularly he wants an apology for Meghan, which most of us can't understand, actually, because she was so welcomed.
I can't understand it for a single second. Let me be honest with you, Angela. She should be apologising to Charles and William. Meghan owes the royal family an apology, not the other way around. Yes. And she actually owes the people of Britain an apology too. Because you know what? She's claimed that we're all racist, when actually we loved having her as part of our royal family. We celebrated her. And I think it's absolutely unforgivable, by the way, that she allowed both Prince Philip and the late Queen Elizabeth II to die while she spread around this nasty rumour that the royal family was racist, which Prince Harry had since had to walk back. So actually, if anyone should be apologising, it's Meghan. To us, to Charles, to William, to Kate.
Yeah, but she should also apologise, because she did say that it was racist, and she left this hanging over for over a year, which upset the senior royals
and also
enormously,
within that time,
because
Philip
they're
died
not.
And the Queen died.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and
the Queen would have been heartbroken by that.
And you know who else should apologise? Oprah Winfrey too. She should apologise for her bad journalism, because she didn't properly question.
No, it was a conversation. It wasn't an interview. You know as much as I do that if you're interviewing someone, you sort of ask several questions in the same sphere to get the full truth. But if you just hear that and go, oh, like that, you know, that's not being a journalism. It was a PR job.
And, you know, if you're interviewed by your best mate, that's going to happen. Look, fascinating stuff. Angela Levin, we will speak to you next week. But coming up in Uncancelled, after future BBC Pointless presenter Nish Kumar brands Rishi Sunak an Asian C-word, why does the British Bashing Corporation keep giving nasty lefties like him a platform? Well, proper comedian Jim Davidson is going to speak out live on this in the studio very shortly. But next to the media buzz, does J.K. Rowling have a point when she says allowing kids to change gender is a medical scandal? My superstar panel gets stuck into that straight after the break.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Back to tomorrow's news site now in the media buzz. And more front pages have just been delivered. The Daily Telegraph report yet another levy on hard-working British families, with households due to be penalised if they do not switch away from gas, which will add over £100 to the average annual bill. Can't they just leave us alone, please? The Sun carries a simple and touching tribute to the irrepressible and irreplaceable Paul O'Grady, Ta-ra Lily, Ta-ra Paul, as they celebrate his groundbreaking drag character, Lily Savage. And we're going to pay tribute to Paul O'Grady shortly with Jim Davidson. But we'll have more in the media buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. The political commentator, Dominique Samuels, the businessman and activist, Adam Brooks, and former Labour advisor, Matthew Laza. Now, the final episode of the 7-part podcast, The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, has just dropped, and the activist's bravery is a thing to behold. In what can only be described as Rowling's most personal interview ever, the Harry Potter author hits out at extreme politics, including woke ideology and the intolerance of the left wing.
So I think that the left is making a tremendous mistake in espousing this kind of, in my view, quasi-religious, incredibly sort of witch-hunting behaviour. I've been shocked by the positions that publishing has taken. If publishers stand for nothing else, they should stand for plurality of views. And the other institutions that I have definitely lost faith in are educational institutions, who I think have taken a very dogmatic position on this and are shutting down debate, freedom of thought.
Absolutely, and as we've come to expect from the world's most influential feminist, she refused to be silenced on the dangers of trans extremism, particularly when it comes to children.
We've seen thousands of % increase in young women trying to escape their physical bodies. Should we not be asking why that's happening? I genuinely think that we are watching one of the worst medical scandals in a century. And I would ask proponents of gender identity ideology who are so militant, who are so determined on no debate, I would ask them, what if you are wrong?
Brave, powerful, and those comments follow the recent decision by the NHS to shutter the controversial Tavistock gender clinic for children after a report concluded it was not safe and stated that other mental health issues were overshadowed when patients raised the issue of gender. So, one of the worst medical scandals in a century, Dominique Samuels, do you agree?
I would completely agree, and I think, you know, it's close to abuse of vulnerable people because many times with these individuals who believe they're in the wrong body, there are other mental health issues at play. And of course, it's always easier to ignore the possibility of other underlying issues which make you feel so uncomfortable in your body that you want surgery to remove your body parts. Now, that's an extreme road to actually want to go down to feel more comfortable within yourself. And we need to ask, where are we going wrong as a society where young people want to effectively mutilate themselves in order to make themselves feel more comfortable being who they are? That's a failure in our society, number one. But it's also a failure in regards to these doctors and medical professionals that are not doing their due diligence and are just accepting this at face value, performing these surgeries, giving these life-changing hormones. And, you know, like J.K. Rowling said, most of the children that feel they are trans, most of them, and studies show, they actually grow out of it. And so these things aren't forever. And she raised a really important point. What if you are wrong? For many people, though, that is too late. When they've already had parts of their body removed, they can't reproduce, and they're left feeling even worse than before. That's why so many of these hospitals and doctors are actually being sued by detransitioners.
But Matthew Nazi, you say J.K. Rowling needs to stop and pause before tweeting. What do you mean?
Well, I just think the whole debate has become really, really unpleasant. I mean, I think that some of the tweets that J.K. Rowling presses retweets on are just adding fuel to the fire. But I think I think she's a voice that needs to be listened to. We shouldn't cancel her.
Those legitimate points?
Absolutely, and I worry that some of her legitimate points get lost sometimes because the debate has become so angry. But I think that what happened at Tavistock was absolutely scandalous, and it's quite right that that it's being closed down, and that and that it's properly thought through how we look after young people who are questioning their gender identity.
But Adam Brooks, I think what we have learned from J.K. Rowling over the past few weeks is she's not going to pause. She's not going to stop.
I think she's a hero.
She's ignoring the left now, and this is her life's mission.
She's a hero. She does not care what people think, and it needs more people in society, especially with big followings, to stand up and speak out.
She's uncancelable.
Look, there is a reason why these diagnoses of gender dysmorphia is exploding. There's a reason for that. It's because it's being pushed down our throat in the media. It's being pushed down kids' throats at school. You know, that this is somehow just a really normal, everyday occurrence where someone needs to change their identity. At the end of the day, there are a couple of people in America that I'll highlight. Chloe Cole, she had her breast removed at 15. Layla Jane, the same clinic, removed her breasts at 13. Both are taking legal action against the clinic. They're saying that they were coerced, and that if they didn't, the parents were told if they didn't do this, they might commit suicide. This is terrible.
And that's not a solution.
Now, a Canadian study showed 82% of boys grew out of their gender-related identity when they become adults.
Of course. And look, in this country, you know, Cara Bell was the very, very brave woman who took the Tavistock clinic to court. She won, then she lost, then she won overall when it was shut down. And, of course, she has detransitioned and has all of the horrible after effects of that mutilation.
But kids do not have the mental capacity to make these decisions themselves. So we have to start looking at the parents as well. And I almost feel that some parents, these liberal people in society, almost find it trendy to have a trans kid or a kid that does that. It's become like an accessory.
I think there's a problem for the left when when J.K. Rowling has been turned into a hate figure for some on the far left. This is a woman who was a massive Labour Party donor. She wrote a cheque for £1 million for the Labour
look at
Party.
how you lot have treated her. It's a complete disgrace.
Yeah, I'm struggling to work out how this has become a left versus right issue. Well,
what was fascinating is we had Kelly J. Keane on the show last night, who, of course, Posey Parker treated terribly in New Zealand, and she said, just like J.K. Rowling, she used to be on the left. And it's issues like this, actually, that make them realise about the intolerance of the left. But look, I want to move on because the world of show business was rocked, simply rocked, in the early hours of this morning with the shocking and very unexpected news that much-loved broadcaster and performer Paul O'Grady had unexpectedly passed away aged just 67 during a glittering and versatile 30-year media career that ranged from presenting TV talk shows to pioneering performances as his alter ego Lily Savage. The boy from Birkenhead quickly became a household name, gaining fans as high-profile as the Queen Consort herself. In a heartfelt tribute earlier today, the royal family's official Twitter account wrote on behalf of Camilla, deeply saddened to hear of the death of Paul O'Grady, who worked closely with Her Majesty in support of Battersea, providing loads of laughter and many waggy-tailed memories. As well as decades of charity work on behalf of his beloved feline friends, O'Grady won the nation's hearts with his wicked sense of humour, an infamous lack of filter perfectly evidenced in this brilliant exchange with Alan Carr.
I think people in the industry are far more interested in what they call A-listers than we are.
Yes.
I'd sooner have someone from Coddy than some yank who's just done a film.
Yeah.
You know.
And you can't mention their love life, their plastic surgery, their alcoholism or anything, cross-dressing.
Yeah, that's it. And they go on about the craft.
Yeah.
And I feel like saying, you witch, then. You know, they go... you know, they do. They talk basically, a lot of them. They really do. And they moan. And I think, if I was being paid 15 million, I'd bag a donkey, so shut up.
Oh, we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him a lot. Shame on the BBC Radio 2, by the way, that paid tribute today, having just taken away O'Grady's show in the months before his death, which was a really unnecessary blow. The listeners didn't want it, and I think they should have just kept their mouths shut today, if I'm completely honest. Dominic Samuels, Adam Brooks, Matthew Laza, thank you so much. But coming up, have the Lib Dems lost their final shred of dignity with their latest stunt in the local election campaign? A win for them tonight might be more than likely than one at next year's election, as we reveal tonight's greatest Britain union jackass. But first, after guest presenter on the BBC's pointless quiz show, Nish Kumar brands Rishi Sunak an Asian C-word. Why does the British Bashing Corporation keep giving these vile lefties a platform to spout hate? Proper comedian Jim Davidson speaks out live in the studio. Jim Davidson is here in just 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. This is where Britain's top commentators, you know who's here, don't you? Speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, Jim Davidson, you've got to be serious because this is a serious story, OK? The lefty lovies and the liberal elite.
You haven't shaved, Dan?
Oh, this is what my normal look is, OK?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So how long do you grow it then before you get back to that chiseled look?
I shave every day, but I just...
Do you? It just comes
yes,
out.
but look, we've got to take this seriously because
Okay.
this is very, very shocking what has happened tonight. I've just seen this, right? The comically challenged lefty Nish Kumar has made a crass tirade where he brands our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, the Asian C-word. This is on a podcast, but he's about to get a big job at the BBC. Watch this.
I assumed that if an Asian man became Prime Minister, he'd be nice. No. And I know that we're in Leicester, a city with a large Asian community, and statistically a lot of you must be and I want you to know, if you're a young Asian, you too can be Prime Minister.
Can you believe that? The BBC's just given him a big job, and he's calling Rishi Sunak an Asian C-word.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's Nish Kumar, and I don't know what's the matter with him. It's not like him to be funny, is it? You know, so the BBC have ticked an even bigger box now, and they're all showing their true colours. The BBC is saying, OK, you can say what you want now. Now Gary Lineker's blurted out his colours, and Andrew Marr as well. Now Nish Kumar. What is Nish Kumar all about? I don't quite get it. I think he will say anything to try and distract from the fact that he's not funny and gets bread rolls thrown at him.
Well, the thing is, I think it's against the trade description that's
calling him a comedian.
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard him say a funny thing, and that just feels like racist abuse. Like, in all seriousness,
yeah, it is.
If you were calling someone an Asian C-word, Jim, you would be cancelled.
Well, in private, I do, but it's about Nish Kumar.
Oh, God. OK.
I've just cancelled myself.
Moving swiftly
OK,
along.
let's go to a commercial break.
Swiftly along. Eddie Izzard, although apparently Eddie's now known as Susie.
Susie Izzard.
He has hit out this week at right-wing comedians. I don't know who he's talking about. I don't know if he had you in mind, but watch this.
He's more left than right? Okay.
What stand-up comedy?
So yeah,
because it is created. The right-wing comedians tend to be sexist and racist comedians who we thought would have gone away, but are still there, and there's still some circuit to that. There's some people who are still. Don't like people of different races.
There's bound to be some kind of really good comics who just happen to vote Conservative.
Yes, probably. Do you have a list? I'm not sure.
Jim.
What? Well, what's he saying? That right-wing comedians are racist and sexist? Yeah, he's probably right.
Jim.
What? He's probably right. I haven't seen any right-wing comedians. I only see comedians. Comedians make people laugh, whether they're right-wing or left-wing. There's funny comedians, and there's Nish Kumar, and then there are funny comedians, and there's Eddie Izzard, who would say anything at all to make him stand out. You know, he does his act all over the world in 15 different languages. I mean, can you imagine being unfunny in 15 different languages? And I don't think there's a right wing or a left wing. There's just funny. Someone will tell a joke. If it's funny, you laugh. If it's not funny, you won't laugh. I love Tom and Jerry. My wife just stares at it. She doesn't get it. So she, it, her, him, Eddie, Susie is wrong. And to sort that Barnett out, it looked like, oh dear. Do you see Benidorm? Come on. I mean, it's odds.
No, there was
let herself go.
So many people being cancelled at the moment for stating what I think are pretty much very common sense positions. The latest is Guy Pearce.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who is, big actor in Memento, in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, where he played the drag queen.
Great, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and all he said, right, is that trans actors should be able to play trans characters and vice versa, because otherwise what you're saying to trans people is you can only ever play trans.
Transvestment.
But he was absolutely attacked. They came down on him like a ton of bricks, and he's had to issue this snivelling apology.
He hasn't apologised.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, where's it going to go then? So I played a gay person, me and John Malkovich, the actor.
But you are gay, aren't you? So that makes sense.
At weekends. You know, I help them out when they're busy. Of course I'm not gay. Well, I've done no offence. Is it funny? We're all walking on eggshells. What's wrong with this country?
Oh, I take no offence from you, Jim.
No, I know that. I know. No, I played a gay person. So
you wouldn't be able to do that now. They wouldn't...
Yeah, I would. I do. Well, I take if I do a joke about with a gay character in it, I would take on that gay persona and portray that character, make up a
Yeah, but that's in your show.
Yeah,
in a movie now or in a TV programme, you wouldn't be allowed because there's this weird thing happening.
Who plays the ghosts then in Ghostbusters?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I said, we need some actors for Ghostbusters. If you are dead and have been for the last 2 years, please come and audition. Yeah. It's crazy. The world's gone bonkers. It is gone bonkers.
Because we literally cannot act anymore.
You know the story of the great movie that was called The Marathon Man, and in it was Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier. And Dustin Hoffman come in looking like a bag of he didn't look well. And he's, what's up with you, dear boy? Oh, he said, my character hasn't slept for 3 days and he's been drinking and whatever, and he looks awful. So I didn't drink, I didn't sleep for 3 days so I could get into the part. He said, no, dear boy, why don't you just try acting it?
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
The whole point.
It is.
The Guardian, they have apologised for their links to the slave trade and now saying that we should all investigate.
Who grasped them up, or did they grasp themselves up?
Well, it was actually Guido Fawkes who first tracked this down. But you know what? The
story is fascinating. He's a boy.
It dates right back to an academic study done in the 1960s, and it's just all swept under the carpet.
So what are they going to do then? They're going to take themselves down to Bristol, and everyone that's read The Guardian, everyone that works for The Guardian, anyone who's walked past The Guardian on a thing, and get the students to throw them in the canal. That'll do. Let's make a statue out of it, and we'll throw them in. Get rid of The Guardian. Do us all a favour. Nish Kumar will have to start reading The Sun.
That is very nice.
Yeah, no.
Actually. Now, look, you mentioned Andrew Marr earlier, but I wanted to show you this because he was the BBC's main political presenter right up until 2021. Listen to what he said this week.
As somebody who wants a Labour victory at the next election, is that I'm alarmed that perhaps Labour is underestimating Rishi Sunak, and I think the Prime Minister is doing far better.
So can you believe that? He now openly says he wants a Labour government. Yeah, but he always...
It's him and Lineker. It's the ears. I think it's something to do with their ears. Whoever puts them ears on them at birth makes them a bit odd. He is odd, Andrew, isn't he?
He is, but the thing is, I just feel like this is just proof that they're all out for the same thing.
They are. Did you ever read the Beano when you were a young child in New Zealand? Well, in there was the Bash Street Kids. They were fantastic. And there was a character in there called Plug, and I think Andrew Marr is his son. People will know what I'm talking about.
Oh, Jim, very quick word on Paul O'Grady.
Great guy. Well, worked in one of the real roughy working-class pub, drag act, if you like, pushed through, showed his talent, and then threw the rags into the drag into the corner and showed us what a fantastic bloke he was. The Queen Consort will be beside herself. She adored him, as we all did. He was great. Great guy.
No, it's sad.
Never changed.
Sad day today.
Yeah.
Jim Davidson. Brilliant to see you, you very naughty man, but it's time now.
I'm going to grow up.
I'm going to have to have a shave when I get home. Time now to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel back with me. Dominic Samuels, who is your nominee for Greatest Britain?
My nominee for Greatest Britain is women's rights activist Kelly Jade Keane, otherwise known as Posey Parker. I just want to commend her for the work she's done, especially after the attack that she had to endure in New Zealand by trans activists.
Indeed, and I think we've got a little clip of my interview with her last night. Oh, I don't think we have that. Actually,
do we have it? No,
Adam Brooks, we saw your nominee flash up, so I know it's the Battersea Dogs home.
Yes, look, I'm a big dog lover. I've always been a dog lover. Something Paul O'Grady supported and highlighted a lot through his programmes. They're just a great sort of institution, and I wish more people would support them and more people would adopt dogs.
Oh my goodness, and we've revealed yours too, Matthew. I know yours now, but Paul O'Grady, what are your memories of him?
Well, I mean, he was a big Labour supporter, spoke in 2015 at our big election rally, but more than that, I mean, this is Paul O'Grady who went from being in the RVT, big gay venue in London, which was raided by the police at the height of the AIDS crisis, and they came with rubber gloves on, and as Lily said, oh, we've got some help with washing up now. Through to the Queen Consort giving a tribute. That's quite a journey.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant man. And of course, Paul O'Grady is tonight's greatest Briton. But Union Jackass time now. Dominic Samuels, who are you nominating?
So the Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey, partook in a really embarrassing PR stunt today, wading in, crashing over...
We've got to see this. We've got to see this.
It's so bad.
Hi, buddy.
Oh,
just
I'm
awkward.
So embarrassed for him. I'm so embarrassed for him. That was no Boris moment. Adam Brooks, your nominee?
My nominee is Sir Keir Starmer, because everything he says at the moment and over recent months has been filled with hypocrisy. And you know, he's lying on...
That's all you have to say. I'm with you.
OK.
Matthew Larson, your nominee?
My nominee is Dominic Raab for confusing Paul O'Grady and calling him Paul Grayson. And those of us who remember Larry Grayson's pretty bad.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman? I totally agree with him. And Paul Grayson was an incredible comic, but he also... But Lily's... Paul O'Grady. But in terms of Lily's...
Yeah, that was awkward, but I'm actually going to go with the Liberal Democrats because it wasn't as awkward as Ed Davey's campaign launch. Matthew Larson, what a great debut on the show. Thank you so much for being here. Adam Brooks, Dominic Samuels, you are absolutely fabulous. I'll be back tomorrow night from 9 p.m, but Headliners is next. Thank you for your company tonight. Good night.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us four, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.